right. This is great. Welcome, everyone, to Virtually Incorrect. I'm your host, Gunter. Virtually Incorrect is a weekly panel discussion show about virtual reality in virtual reality. Topics interesting to the VR community will be semi-seriously discussed with each week's guest, with nothing off limits. I want to thank the Riftmax crew for producing the show, and also Roger Essig for the great artwork seen behind me. And of course, big thanks to my guests, the folks here in the Riftmax audience, and everyone watching via Hitbox Stream or YouTube. So this week I have a great panel of developers and VR personalities. First we have TeddyOK, the developer of Hydra Deck, and most recently the Rollercoaster demo done in UE4. Welcome.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man. And next to him, we actually have SayItAintJonas. He's a VR enthusiast. He's also a web developer, and he did a little arcade demonstration in VR. And welcome, Jonas.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gunter.
And across the table is eVRydayVR, a popular VR personality bringing great VR content via his YouTube stream. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
And finally, we have the host of the Enter VR podcast, Babywolverine. Welcome to the show, man.
Hi, everybody. You can call me Chris, by the way, so it's good to be here.
Thank you all for coming. And before we kick off the first story, I want to announce the Hitbox poll for this show. The question is, how long will it take for VR to get to 1 billion users? And then at the end of the show, we'll share the result. First story is titled, Sony built a PlayStation 4's controller with VR in mind. That's posted by The Jerry, and the story was on Engadget. Let me read a little bit. You may think that Sony built this Project Morpheus virtual reality headset to accommodate the PlayStation 4's DualShock 4 controller, but it turns out that the opposite is true. The gamepad was designed for VR from the start. The Morpheus team insisted on building the always-on light bar into the DualShock for its purposes and had to remain silent about the real objectives until the VR helmet's unveiling in March. So let me toss it over to Teddy first. What do you think about this story?
Well, I think the truth is we're probably never going to really know. For me, the PS4 controller is very similar to the PS3, so I can't see it being that different. Yeah. But, you know, that said, I think the Morpheus is one of the leading VR platforms just because they've got the controls nailed. You make a game for Morpheus, you can almost guarantee they're going to have, you know, the move controllers, and you can do like we're doing, you know, you can have hands. Yeah. It's awesome.
Everyday, what do you think?
I generally agree that I don't know what actually happened. I seriously doubt that this was a case of the Morpheus people going to the PlayStation people and saying, "Oh, we need you to build in this feature that we're going to use," because they've said that they're a very small sub-organization within Sony, and they probably don't have a lot of influence. So most likely, what happened here was that they might have come to them and said, like, it would be helpful if you guys could do this, and they saw the market potential in having this extra feature even if Morpheus didn't come to light, so they decided to implement it anyway, but I don't think it was the deciding factor.
Interesting. How about you, Jonas?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you know, a company like Sony, just think of their R&D department. Yeah, Morpheus is probably a small team inside the entire unit, but when I first looked at or first read the story, it brought to mind a lot of the demos you saw with when the PS4 first came out, when they were demoing it on Conan. It looked like they had a heavy focus on, you know, augmented reality, not so much virtual reality. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let me read one more comment, and then we'll talk to Chris and get his thoughts. It's from You Ain't Got to Lie, Craig. I love that. While they do claim to have had a VR HMD prototype early on, I'm not so sure I believe this. It's for AR and 3D spatial input, just as it was advertised and just as featured on the PS3. 3D spatial inputs just happen to be good for VR. So, Jonas, it's kind of what you were just saying. Chris, what do you think?
Ultimately, I think this is a bit of marketing from Sony. I think, when the Morpheus comes out, they're thinking about, as a player, like, oh my god, I gotta buy a PlayStation Move now. And so I think they're trying to cover their tracks by saying, hey, yeah, you don't have to get a PlayStation Move. It works with a controller. We've been saying it all along. I mean, it's just a random thought, but I think it might go that route.
All right, so we were about to move on to the next story, which is titled, A New Virtual Keyboard Through Bracelets. The sensor board is intended to be used with devices such as Google Glasses or Oculus Rift, whereby the user can see the keyboard in front of them as they type. So I want to toss this over to Jonas first and see what you think.
So yeah, at first I love the idea. I really want some type of virtual keyboard, trying to put down my hydras, find which way I'm oriented at my desk, find the keyboard, get my fingers on the home row. It's a pain. I almost knocked over my beer a second ago, which is never a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And as a user interface designer, I just imagine all kinds of different ways you can have, you activate your keyboard, you get kind of a little panoramic way to kind of type on it. But I question whether or not this is the approach that I would prefer. Kind of like we were talking about before the show, I think that holding these two devices in my hand and keeping them from slipping off or what have you might be a little troublesome. I think I would still prefer some type of haptic glove because you could achieve the same thing. If you can get perfect hand tracking, finger tracking in a glove, what's to stop you from activating a gesture that turns on your keyboard, and then you've got much more precise control than you would, with a kind of a just holding those two sensors in your hand. So that's my 2 cents.
Just like the touch feedback, you get little vibration when you're typing on your phone. I mean, you could have these little vibrations in your fingers with the glove. That would be really cool.
I just want to point out about this the keyboard thing is it won't work with Google Glass. I don't know if anyone's tried it, but Google Glass isn't like AR. It doesn't give you over your whole view. It's like a tiny little screen just up here in the corner. So you're going to have to kind of look like that to see any kind of output from it. But anyway, that aside, we don't really care about it for a keyboard. We care about it for VR input, right? Because surely if it can track fingers, then it can track fingers, right? That's what we really want from it. But yeah, I couldn't really get enough information to really tell how well it's going to work or exactly what it can track. I guess it's just your finger movements, but it doesn't have any kind of idea of position, I take it, or what the rest of your arm is doing. I don't know. Does anyone know any more about it?
Yeah, I think it does. It can do some hand tracking, but I don't know how, to what degree.
So I think it's obvious that it can't do hand tracking, like positional hand tracking throughout a volume of space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just see this as kind of a Myo 2.0, and it has a lot of the same limitations of Myo. And I don't envision it as being a complete VR input solution in any sense. And as for typing, I don't know. I'm one of the few people who is actually completely comfortable using a normal keyboard in VR because I'm just really good at typing blind, so I haven't run up against that issue very much. But if we had a haptic glove, we could type on a virtual keyboard. I would be happy with that.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely, we're experimenting with input devices. This is a novel little piece of hardware, so it was interesting to see it. So another comment that was made was by Foxius, the developer of Sightline. He says, what about using Minum? I guess that's how you say it. I'm not aware of this. Or something similar in VR with simple motion detection. Minuum. Interesting. It's a bit different way of typing, which allows really sloppy, it usually gets words right even, man, I'm sloppy tonight too, it usually gets words right even if I miss the letters by quite some distance, and typing without need for tactical feedback, which is extremely important for fast typing on a regular keyboard. I think they could be changing the way we type rather than typing to emulate keyboard in some way, although question is if people want to learn different ways to type. So Everyday, you know a little bit about this. I actually don't know about Minuum. Can you explain that?
So I know a little bit more than you, but not very much. I installed Minuum. I tried it on my tablet, my Android tablet. and it's comparable to a lot of soft keyboards like, say, Swipe or things like that, in the sense that it's able to it has a dictionary of English words, and if you type something that's like close to an English word, it'll autocorrect, and that's how it deals with the and it kind of smushes all 3 rows of the keyboard down into 1 row, and all the letters are super close together, and that's basically all that it does. And it has the same limitations as typical soft keyboards, in the sense that if you're trying to type something that's just radically out of the dictionary, then it's going to be slow and annoying, but as long as you're typing normal natural text, it kind of works. So, like, if you were trying to say
other languages, I'm sure.
Right. Well, I mean, you can install language packs for it, but if you were, like, say, typing source code or something, it would just fail horribly. And it's I think it's they make a good point, though, that this kind of thing where it is using a language model to do the typing could be quite adequate for a lot of purposes, like say text chat in VR games, doing something similar in VR.
I'm just going to put this out there. Here's my idea. I think as soon as we've got positional tracking in our head units, then we know where our actual keyboard is. So it becomes much less difficult to type on there. I mean, all you have to do is have a virtual representation of that keyboard, then whammy, you just reach out and big-a-big-bob, solve the problem, right?
Interesting, yeah. Could we put a little stem thing on it to help us track it and be there for sure? Like, we can actually map our keyboard that way? Or do we not need that?
I don't know, once you know where it is once, and you've got the camera is attached to your monitor, and you know it's below there somewhat, I don't know. You know, you position it once.
Is that going to work for everybody? They're masses?
Is talking DK2, right?
Yeah. Is that going to work for everybody, though? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, just, we play on the Minecraft server a lot, and, all the people who come on there, we've got all those hundreds of users who pop in and they say, oh, sorry, I'm not good at typing on the keyboard with my Rift. So many people, it seems like, don't learn touch typing. So I think that's an issue. And the other thing is, right now we're basically talking about seated experiences only. Some folks still are all in the standing camp or the full mobility camp, and your keyboard goes out the window at that point.
That's a good point.
There are typing solutions like the Twiddler, though, that can be used from a standing position.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board with what everybody else is saying. I really just want a haptic glove already. I mean, deep inside the crevices of my tiny Nicaraguan heart, I'm wishing for Oculus to, like, be, having a Carmack in the basement locked in, working on a glove. I don't know, maybe. But personally, I'm not really excited for that new thing that we saw.
Yeah, I like to see new things, but it doesn't mean I want to adopt them, and there's quite the number of hardware to adopt out there. So it's great efforts, and I'm very interested in all, but we'll see. Any other last thoughts on that topic?
Could you combine the keyboard thing with the Myo thing? That'll give you something. Don't know if it should be that great, but you get something from it.
I feel like they might be redundant.
What about dictation? What about speaking into a mic and somehow having a dictation software just pick up whatever you're saying in VR?
Yeah, I love that at it. We were just talking about that, Jonas and I, on Skype earlier, and he referenced your video every day from the Voyager deck. It's a demo that's made in UE4, and there is some voice activation as well as Netflix playing there. So yeah, I think that's a great way to interact with things, a great input device, except of course it fails a lot of times as well, but it's really quite a perfect one. It fits that idea of the future that we want, but I think we're going to need a little bit more than that. Let's discuss that a little bit further. Jonas, what do you think?
I love the idea of voice commands, but I think, imagine this program with voice commands. So I'm trying to do something in the background. I'm trying to summon my my Coke or my can of popcorn, but I'm also trying to talk to you at the same time. Things like that you'd have to keep in mind.
Yeah, with VR social stuff, that could just get in the way.
Right.
Until everybody's used to hearing everybody else go, like, computer, do something. Just That's not very natural. Every day?
But, you know, you could have some kind of gestures or something for that, right? I mean, there's another way you can do some of that. I think natural voice input is coming along. It's coming along, you know, a lot in the last 10 years, but I still think another 10 years would make it much, much better.
I mean, the things that voice is really good for are things where you have a large number of items to choose from, but you can recall them specifically, and so that you don't end up having to look through a huge list or something. And so there are a lot of cases in VR where that would make sense. For example, if you have a large number of locations you might want to teleport to, just being able to say the one that you want to go to. If you have a large collection of items in your inventory and you just want to get one out, and you know which one it is, but you don't want to look through a huge inventory, these are the kind of things that would work really well with voice commands.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next story, and it's a shameless plug for TeddyOK here. I wanted to bring up the UE4 Rollercoaster plugin, tutorial video plus new version of demo from TeddyOK. Basically I just wanted to, you know, I love your thinking with, of course, the Hydra stuff that you've done. I mean, I was able to see and use positional in virtual reality because of what you were doing there, and it was really this simple, you know, approach. I love how limitations can cause us to become more creative in our approaches, and that's certainly what you've done. And here again, you know, everybody loves coasters. It's such a great little experience, and then you minified us. I love the idea of making us small and showing different types of scale. It reminds me of these Unreal Tournament 2000 maps I used to play on when it was some kid's bedroom and we were all just, you know, jumping, you know, way with anti-gravity around this room and blowing each other up, and it was just really cool experience. So tell us about the demo, just some things about it, and I think we all think it rocks.
Yeah, cool, thanks. Well, yeah, I just wanted to kind of get started in UE4. I'd been doing a lot of stuff in the back end and the rendering and poking around in the engine. I thought, you know, that it's time to actually release something. So over the Easter weekend, I was coming up with ideas, and I thought another roller coaster would be cool. There's a lot out there that are kind of like simulation roller coasters, like real life ones, and that's kind of good. But I don't know, there's something different about Boone's one in UDK. His roller coaster was more fantastic, and so I wanted to do another one, and I looked at, you know, I didn't want to make any assets because that's not my style, so I looked through all the different levels that Epic had released, and I saw that one, and then I kind of got the idea, you know, I could shrink it down and put it in this room and it'd be really cool. And I had done something similar with my RTS demo, the one where you start off and you're really big and you're a giant looking down at a tiny world, and then as you bend down using position tracking, the world scales up, and that fascinated me. I thought that was really cool. So but also I wanted to make something and release it, and my goal this time was to set it up in a way that I could use the blueprint system from Unreal and release it as a plugin so that anyone could make a roller coaster, even if they don't know how to code. You know, they can just download the plugin, plug it into the editor, and lay down a track, and off they go. So yeah, I achieved that, and I'm pretty happy with that. It was a good first release, and I'm glad people like it.
Yeah, I love, you know, when people give back to the community. That's a big thing for me. So I do web development and I do Drupal, and so that's what we do there. We give a lot back to the community. Jonas, I saw your hand up. Did you have a comment?
I was actually trying to reset my hands, but no, it's
just stretching, virtual.
Yeah. Great. It's great demo. I like the way you reuse the assets, and always glad for somebody to release tutorials. You know, I don't try to do a lot of development, but I was able to completely follow your tutorial on your plugin, and yeah.
Oh, you know, yeah, Teddy, I just want to say, you know, I want to commend you because you are really good at giving instruction, and it's really easy to follow. And yeah, I like what you're doing with the engine, so keep it up, man. It's really cool stuff.
Cool, thanks, guys. So you guys are going to build a roller coaster now?
Maybe.
I think, yes. Yeah, I think I might.
If I get the time, I would love to. Absolutely.
One of the things that I learned when making a roller coaster that's very different in VR to real life, and I think this is what Boone did really well, is that the exciting parts of VR roller coasters is all about the anticipation. So you don't have that kind of feeling of gravity or physical forces on your body. So a drop doesn't mean anything if you don't see it coming. If you go around a blind corner and suddenly you drop, you're too disoriented to really get what's going on. So you need to bring the player up to the edge, show them the edge really slowly, and then drop them off. And that's the bit where you get that feeling of, oh my god, I'm falling. You know, so
that's
it's really about building anticipation.
That's definitely what the UDK roller coaster did. In fact, if you look at videos of that roller coaster, like they all show the moment when the person is going down the first big drop.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what I did. I watched a lot of videos of people playing it, and really kind of took from that what was good. And that's where I kind of came up with the idea of going up that little ramp where you slow down and stop, and then you can see ahead of you. You can see that there's track, and it goes up really high, and there's a huge, big kind of jump. But you know it's coming, and then it has the kind of build up, and the machine builds up, and that's all about building that kind of anticipation. So when you finally go, you know, you're completely immersed in it.
You know, I was wondering, how much does speed and acceleration factor in terms of like the immersiveness? Is there a sweet spot to in terms of acceleration and speed?
You know, I don't think there really is. I just kind of played around with the numbers, but it's in no way a physical simulation. My roller coaster is you kind of just set the speed you want it to go at, and it will accelerate up to that. It does kind of, you know, if you're going on a vertical piece of track, if you're going down, you accelerate a bit faster. It's not perfect, it's not accurate, but it doesn't seem to matter all that much, so long as it's fairly smooth and flowing, and that you kind of have that that slip away when you go off the edge of something. I think that's about it, really. I don't know.
So I had a couple quick comments about this one, which was one of them is I had actually played with miniaturization in some other demos before. What you a lot of people aren't aware, but you can actually hack your Rift profile to use IPD and height values that are extreme. So if you divide them both by 10, you can turn yourself into 1/10 the size. And it only works in apps that use both the IPD and height values. But a couple apps that it works in are Tuscany and Redframe. And it's a lot of fun to try both, making yourself smaller, making yourself larger, using that trick.
That's freaking awesome. That's great.
And the other comment I had was just I'm really excited that Teddy's working on this roller coaster designer, because I think that it's going to be part of, I guess, my big dream for VR is I want everyone in the world to be a content creator, and part of how you get there is you look at what content's most popular and you find ways to make it really easy for people to build that. And I think this is one of the very first early examples of that.
Couldn't agree with you more. Anybody else?
Yeah, and Unreal Engine is the perfect place to do it. Now that I can't believe that they open source the whole engine, I'm still shocked by that. And that you can get access to it so cheaply. I mean, just so quickly, there's so much stuff being generated. It's really taking off. So, yeah, I think it's a perfect platform to do it on. And following in their spirit, you know, it's really cool.
Well, speaking of, you know, Unreal Engine and all that, we have a couple more stories that are going to be involved with that. It's been some, you know, a lot of posting on that, and it's just such good news that that's happened, and we all want to learn more and know more. So the next story is Epic Games live stream about Unreal Engine 4, VR update, and more. And this is, actually I don't have who it's posted by. I forgot to put that in the notes, sorry. But there's a comment here by Lucky KO, and he says, most important points, they will release all the VR demos with the DK2 shipping, and they have someone from Oculus there to integrate Time Warp. So that's excellent. We'll start with you, Teddy. Go ahead.
Yeah, the WYSIWYG thing, I'm not sure what to make of that. It seems like maybe Flash, kind of like, you know, how there's scale forming games. That's what I take from it. I don't really know. I'm not sure what the application of VR is just yet. Yeah. I don't know. It's some kind of UI thing, I guess.
Does anybody know about that? Not really. Interesting. Okay.
I assume that's what it is, yeah. But yeah, some of the VR stuff that they're doing with Unreal is really cool. I see that they've got, you know, a few people in Epic who are big kind of VR fans. They've got guys coming over from Oculus to integrate stuff. They're integrating the new SDK, and that includes time warping. But more excitingly, I think, is the improved perspective correction and the distortion. Because if you guys have tested that new SDK and the Tuscany demo, for me it's so much clearer and looks so much better. So yeah, I'm really excited to see that. And I was actually going to start porting that in myself, but it's good to hear they're doing it, so I can do something else now.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on like Unreal Engine in general? Every day?
So I really like that they open sourced it. Like there were a number of things with Unity where I was like, there's this one parameter, I just want to adjust it, but it's not exposed programmatically, and there's absolutely just no way to do it. And I know it's there, but I can't change it, and it's really frustrating. And with UE4, it's relatively easy to just add a little hook, and just now I can have programmatic access to the engine and change around things and play around with the engine in ways that just aren't possible in Unity. And I think that enables new creative opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been amazing to hear. I haven't dived in. Actually, got a big problem with my Windows computer with the engine, so I haven't got to get in there. And I don't really have a lot of the time anyway, so it hasn't been priority. But I talk with my team Metatron, and their work on VR chess, and just love hearing how easy it is, the blueprinting system. And I just can't wait to get in there and get my time to learn. It sounds so much more user friendly, and it's great. Chris, what do you think about Unreal Engine or any of the stuff that we've just been talking about?
I'm really excited that Epic is going all out, or it seems to be really supportive of virtual reality. And ultimately, my dream would be sort of what eVRydayVR has been saying, how it'd be amazing if the content creation becomes accessible to the masses. And I see Unreal Engine 4 becoming that thing. Although like I said earlier, ultimately my dream would be to be able to stand in my room and wearing a HMD with a pair of hydras and be able to feel like God and create things right before my eyes with some sort of accessible VR UI. I don't know how far away that is, but it feels like having the power of Unreal and using it in virtual reality with some special UI of some sort is it seems so exciting to me right now.
Yeah, it's quite the tool. I'm pretty blown away as well. Jonas, what do you think?
I didn't catch all the live stream, but as far as it goes, I really like the tutorials and stuff that I've used so far. I think I've gone through all the ones that they've released officially, and doing the little bit I did in Unity, it was a little bit frustrating. I think I see a lot of it seems more intuitive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, they've had some time to build that out, and Unity's working on their next version, so, I mean, they might be able to do something similar, but as it stands right now, it seems to be a tool of choice, maybe, or at least a tool of choice that's on the rise.
I think the ball's in their court now, because, if they go open source, are Unity going to go open source? I don't know if they will, or if they're going to change to the cheaper pricing scheme. Yeah, it's really kind of changed the game up now. Yeah, I think this is definitely a step in the right direction towards having more content creators. Unity was a great tool for that. The indie game community really sprung up around it, and it was a way of making it more accessible. I think Unreal is going even further down that path, and that eventually, and I think it's going to be quite a while, but we're going to get to the stage where we'll have, everyone can be a content creator for virtual and 3D and computer generated stuff. It would be really cool.
It's worth remarking that right now Unity really has an advantage in its asset store, and for people who want to build content but aren't skilled at modeling, that's definitely going to be an advantage for Unity for the foreseeable future. But I think as Unreal builds market share and builds up their own asset marketplace, it's going to be less of a differentiator.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
All right, so a couple more comments here. We have a comment from, and these things are always hard to read. I guess it's Psycho Dead in leak speak. I think more important than UE4 engine updates is that they will reveal a new or remake of old Unreal Tournament today in the stream. And then another comment by Wormslayer, who's in the audience. I think his alien mug's over there, or maybe he's back there. He's back there. He made a comment of, I played so much UT 2004. I made a bunch of maps too. I even ported them to Quake 1 Deathmatch maps over. And I just wanted to, say that I also love Unreal Tournament. I'm more of an Unreal Tournament 2000 guy. I remember A friend had a T1 line back in like '99, and we had a server running, and it was just great, awesome times and whatnot. So that's good news. And the next story basically is about Unreal Tournament. So let me just run right into that. The future of Unreal Tournament begins today, and can we please add Rift support to this? And that was posted by Bodyzilla, and the article's from UnrealEngine.com. Work on the future of Unreal Tournament begins today, and we're happy to announce that we're going to do this together with you. And here's the plan. We've created a small team of UT veterans that are beginning work on the project starting today. From the very first line of code to the very first art created and design decision made, development will happen in the open as a collaboration between Epic, UT fans, and UE4 developers. And I'm going to toss it over to Chris to start.
I'm extremely excited to hear this. When you say Unreal Tournament, I just all these feelings of nostalgia spring up inside of me. Actually, my first internet girlfriend was inside Unreal Tournament. I think she was a girl, but yeah, when I was 14, man, she was great. Anyway, I'm super excited for Unreal, and in terms of VR support, I am a little bit weary of how that might translate, just because of my experience with Team Fortress 2. So I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to see what's gonna come in the future for sure.
Good point, Jonas. What do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. The only bad experience I've had in the Rift so far was Team Fortress 2. It's too fast. I just don't feel like that's an experience that was, at least for the DK1. Maybe the DK2 will change things, but Unreal Tournament, it's so fast. I kind of I want to see different experiences in VR, not so much first-person shooters. So, it could be cool. I'm not holding my breath for it.
Some of us, will love it, of course. I actually love playing Team Fortress 2, but I was a big Team Fortress 2 player, not so much anymore, but I do love getting in the Rift with it, and I'm pretty, adept, and I don't get sick, and I'm able to keep up. It's just the UI that drives me crazy. I can't really use any of that. And, of course, Unreal Tournament, that can be solved. And one of the things I'm really interested with this is that, everybody's involved and help building it, so the Rift support, maybe the Rift support being done right, the interface being done right, can possibly happen because we all can have a say in that. Teddy, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm one of those people that I'm okay with any kind of motion sickness, funnily enough. Like, I got Trackmania 2, and I was playing that, and I was going around the hardest tracks, and I was just fine, but I'm pretty sure that'll make most people barf. Right. But even so, even though I would be okay in, I'm fine in Team Fortress, or would be okay in Unreal Tournament, I don't necessarily think that's going to be a great VR experience. I don't think it's going to be a game that I would be compelled to play in VR versus playing it just on the screen. It's not that hugely different for me, because you don't have a more in-depth interaction into the world, and the world's not built to the kind of the right pacing and scale of VR. So yeah, I'm more interested to see maybe what people build out of the assets of what comes out of Unreal Tournament, perhaps, for VR.
I mean, one of the things with Unreal, you could always slow down or speed up the gameplay, so maybe if you could slow it down and have that variable, more people could be interested in it. But again, it is a first-person shooter. It's not going to be some exploration or something more different than that, but I'm certainly excited. In a tangent, though, my friend that came over last weekend, I think it was affected, ended up leading him barfing in my backyard, so I totally had that going on, and some of my friends just have some problems with it, but don't want to talk about that too much. Every day, what do you think about Unreal Tournament and VR and the story?
I'm undecided, really. I definitely feel like any issues of sickness that would arise in a fast-paced first-person shooter are going to be much reduced with DK2 and CV1.
Yeah.
And I played a lot of Unreal Tournament back when I was younger, and I think that there are certain things that will have to change. Like, you can't have a rocket shot at you and get launched 50 feet back through the air. That's not going to be comfortable regardless. But at the same time, I was playing Snowdrift on my channel today, and one of the things you can do in Snowdrift is you can just totally screw up and face plant and do a wipeout on the mountain. Every time I did that, it hurt, but at the same time I was like, this is awesome. This is exactly what it feels like to wipe out on a real mountain, and
it hurt so good.
Yes.
I
And
do love Snowdrift, which we had the Jespinauds developer on last week, and what I really loved, and I said it then, was the high score. You know, I see people from the community on the high score list, and it makes me want to play more and get up on that list.
yeah, so I mean, I feel like if there, so this transparent open development offers VR enthusiasts and VR developers the opportunity to be a part of that discussion and that process, and to be in there and say, like, this feature you just added, this is horrible in the Rift. We gotta reconsider this or find another option for this. So I think that we can end up with it having a really good Rift mode if we just kind of pay attention and give good feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if
That's
this
what I'm
is.
hoping for.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if this is kind of obvious, but I figured, you know, eventually, if there's this community behind this, I wonder, developing for it, especially Unreal Tournament, I figured there would be Rift-only servers where the game is slowed down a bit, it's modified a bit more, and I don't know, it might work out that way, but who knows?
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Well, there's nothing to stop that happening. I mean, all you have to do is somebody's just got to build it, right? I mean, it's all open source, it's all free. Anyone can do that.
Yeah, mod, basically.
One thing I saw on the
not even a mod. I mean, you got all the codes. It's a whole new game as soon as you change it.
Sorry about that. Yeah, one thing I saw a comment on the subreddit was, you know, if they do this, if it doesn't quite work out well for the Rift, I mean, they don't necessarily have to do it as a, you know, your character is the camera. It could be more of you, it's like you're watching it or playing it on a 70-foot screen, and the game is in 3D, so you get that sense of depth. You can kind of look around. It could add to the experience, but you're not necessarily in the game. And I kind of like that idea.
Interesting. So our next story is kind of related, basically, and it ties in what you were saying, Jonas, on your first round, was, are we all a little tired of shooting things in the face? And this is posted by Drash VR. And there's basically some comments here that I want to read. First comment, unfinished business. Yes, I'm tired of gratuitous death orgies that involve nothing but shooting things. No, I'm not tired of FPS in general. I hope and expect FPS to be popular genre in VR, just as it happens to be on other platforms. FPS is my favorite genre, and it's an insanely deep and complex one at that. The problem with the Minecraft kiddies on the subreddit who don't play FPS is that they generalize the genre as being nothing more than Counter-Strike, Call of Duty, and Battlefield. Anyways, I think FPS will wholly evolve in something else in VR. Let's discuss. Chris.
Yeah, no, that's a point that hits home for me, because I'm extremely excited for the possibilities in VR for learning. That's what I'm looking forward to actually the most. I want to learn things in VR, and not that shooting is bad or anything. I love shooting games, but I'm, you know, as a medium, this is a baby. It's a baby, and it's growing. And obviously, you know, the things that work right now are going to be crossing over and being played with and toyed with. But obviously, I think the most exciting things are the things that we haven't even come up with yet. And yeah, who knows? We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Jonas, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love first-person shooters, but kind of disenfranchised a bit. You know, I'm 32 years old. I'm not, you know, not out of the game. I don't play as many games as I used to, but when I do try to check in on like game reviews just to see what's out there, it's like just variants of different first-person shooters. I'm super excited about the prospect of just the different gameplays or game types. You know, exploration's a big one. The Titans of Space demo, it's like exploration and learning. But I think I'm most excited about, and this kind of ties into Facebook, so don't throw anything, but just social aspects of games. You know, like how many of you guys here in the audience, you know, I've never met, but I've spent hundreds of hours talking to some of you guys. And just the idea that we could sit over there in the, you know, the seats and watch a movie together and like throw tomatoes at the screen or have some cheesy 4D effects, you know, that's awesome.
Or even like sit around a table and have a discussion.
Exactly.
That would be awesome. Let's do that.
Somebody should do that.
That's something which I think I really feel like we're missing, is that there's a lot of really good demos coming out, but there's not enough good multiplayer experiences, especially ones where you've got a game to play. So I've decided that from now on, every demo that I release is going to feature multiplayer in one way or another, because I think that's
fantastic.
It's just such an important thing to do.
I wish that
to make it
Voyager...
fun, something you can play over and over, right?
Exactly. Play with people. I mean, it's such a big deal. I mean, even hanging out's still cool, but I'm great to hear that, because that's a big passion of mine, is the whole, and we don't see enough of it. Maybe UE4 will help us a lot with that. I know it's not quite worked out, or it just came out to use to build that stuff, but that's still territory that people are still working out, I believe.
I think there's a fair bit of support in there. That said, the next demo I'm planning is going to involve shooting. So I don't know.
It's hilarious. What do you think?
Count me in.
Not that shooting is. Oh, sorry.
Okay. So I was just going to comment that, I read a bunch of the comments on this article, and I think some of the most insightful ones were basically that, FPS is a genre, and genres become more popular and less popular, but they never really go away. We still have platformers, even though platformers are no longer the dominant genre in video games. And likewise for say murder mysteries as a style of book, we still have those, even though they're not as popular as they once were. And I think that, what this has been in the last 10 years has been, FPS has been a really good fit for detailed 3D graphics engines, and they've spent a lot of time refining them, and I think we're just getting to the point where they've got a formula, and they're not doing a lot of innovation. They're not doing a lot of grand new stuff with FPSs, and so they're falling into a gradual decline. And I think that VR. One of the exciting things about VR is it could possibly offer opportunities and interesting ways to innovate in the FPS space and to revitalize the genre. As well as a way of exploring other genres that, as a result of FPS's overwhelming popularity, have been neglected up to now.
Yeah, just to sort of piggyback on what Everyday is saying, that's really important. I think developers and big publishers are caught up in this innovator's dilemma. The last 3-4 Call of Duties netted $1 billion each or more, and so if we want innovation, I think we're gonna have to make it ourselves, because I don't know if the publishers are gonna let go of that golden egg-laying goose that they got going on right now.
Yeah, and people love competition too, and shooters are great for that. Everybody wants to shoot. I remember playing G.I. Joe when I was young, and just shooting's natural. It's something you want to do. It's fun.
There's a reason action films have remained one of the dominant genres in Hollywood. Shooting people is exciting. That's all there is to it.
A gun is an ultimate extension of your hand, and it's fascinating.
I think that for VR though, scrap that. For all gaming, shooting is probably so popular, I think, because it's one of the simplest interactions you can have. When you're building a game, to have something where you can just interact with something remotely, I point over there and that thing, something happens over there. It's very simple to build. Now, whereas if you do something that is quite physical, like melee combat, or even, some kind of a puzzle game where you've got to use your hands, those interactions and the physics and the way that all reacts is so much more complicated than just point at thing and thing does thing, So I think that's why shooters have kind of been so prevalent. But I think they'll be around for a while, because although we've got a more immersive world, we haven't necessarily got more good ways of doing complex interactions. Like if I want to interact with another person, that's not really figured out, exactly how we do this and how things should react. That's a really complex problem to solve. So I think we'll have a lot of this kind of remote interaction games for a little while, but this at least gives us a reason to develop past that.
No, that's an awesome point. That's awesome. And got a couple more stories here. Actually got a lot more stories, but we're only going to go through a couple more. I wanted to hit on the Technolust Kickstarter reaching its third stretch goal, Wastelands area.
Oh.
Yep. Woot woot. And this was posted by Fockphil. And basically there's 24 hours to go, I think, as of a couple hours ago. So really it's like 22 hours. But when the show started, it was 24. And I really hope we make it to 60,000 there, because at that stretch goal we get photo scanned NPCs. and we'd all love that. But I think I don't know where we're at right now because I'm doing a show and I can't really check that. But I hope it works. So there was a comment by a Piece of Fruit who's on the show, and he says, keep backing, people. I hear there are triple-breasted women on Mars, because that's one of the other 55,000. That's the stretch goal. So
get your ass to Mars.
You guys like Technolust?
Yeah, it's cool, and I'm really chuffed to see that it's getting backed on Kickstarter. These kind of small VR community project. I didn't realize our community was so vast that we can raise these kinds of funds, and that's awesome. That these kind of small fanfare indie titles can kind of get funded and get built. That's really great. So yeah, good luck to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Who else likes Technolust? I'm sure all of us. What do you think of the demo, or what do you think of this?
Yeah, it's when we had Blair, right?
Yep.
Yeah, when we had him on the show a few weeks ago, I'm just glad to talk to him. I mean, it's I'm super excited for two things: my DK2 coming in July and Technolust. And when you put them together, it's like chocolate and peanut butter. It's all. I mean, it's kind of what you pictured cyberpunk being. There is a cyberpunk subreddit, and if you guys aren't on that, it's there's good stuff daily on that. But it's just such a great place to hang out. I do a lot of online meetings through my job, and sometimes I'll put Tuscany on and sit in a go-to meeting and talk to folks. But recently I found I can just go into the back alley of Technolust and do the same thing. It's kind of a neat experience if you've never done it.
Whoa, you just blew my mind, man, because I'm a web developer as well, and I'm constantly on conference calls, and that is awesome. And usually I'm just sitting there.
Yeah, it beats sitting there just staring at your wall. I mean, if there's so many virtual places you could be. You don't need to be sitting in your office anymore to go through those boring meetings.
Excellent.
56,241.
4,000 to go.
So we've got Mars. We need 4,000 in the next 24 or 22 hours to get photoscanning PCs. That's a big deal.
Everybody on the stream, give money to Technolust.
Yes, everybody watching.
Donate blood or sell blood.
I'm about to go give my kidney away. Thank you.
I'm a doctor.
I feel like we're seeing at least a glimpse of the future in terms of how I was saying that big publishers are stuck in their own dilemma, their innovators' dilemma, and we need to, as a community, bring about our own innovation. And this is an example of something successfully being brought about. So, yeah, I wonder how much how much the Kickstarter model will scale up eventually, in terms of delivering content. But so far, it's I'm really excited for Technolust.
So I think legal reform is going to play a big role in that, in the sense that we're starting to see this laws enabling small investment. I think at least up to a certain ceiling, and so I think we're going to end up with very large numbers of people investing like serious money, like donating $1,000, $5,000, because they can get a stake in the company for that.
That, or this is not what you're able to do, I think, on Technolust, but there's certainly, I upped my package so that I could get myself in the game, or get your face in the game, and there's more packages.
Yeah, you can do that on Technolust.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know if you can go further and own part of the, you can't own part of the company, but that would, or
not yet,
a piece of it. But that would be a great reward.
And then Technolust is, this demo is, it's hard to explain exactly why it's awesome, but this is one of the first demos that's really gone beyond, like, you're just in a room, or you're just doing some simple arcade-style interaction, or it's the first one where there's multiple environments, there's a narrative, there's everything's fitting together like a well-crafted puzzle. It's very, very well done, and I'm really looking forward to, like, when I reached the end of the demo, I was like, no, I want to go inside, I want to continue, I want to know the rest of the story.
That's a good sign, and I think one of the things that may be helping it, this is something that I just would want, there's no data, but it's that it's cyberpunk, it's in that style, and I think virtual reality goes really well with that. It's obvious, don't really state that, but what I'm not excited for, and I say this now, but is like Dungeons and Dragons, or just a lot more of that stuff that I've just played out, kind of like I played out a lot of first-person shooters. But then again, I do love that stuff too, so if there was good content for that, I would certainly play it, but I'm very excited for any future stuff.
And that's part of why Technolust works really well, is because they're like playing. So in the setting itself, you have a virtual reality HMD, and a lot of the stuff they've already done is kind of playing with the idea of like you're modifying your HMD, you're doing things like that.
Yeah, it's cool. Is what it is. Any other thoughts on Technolust? All right, and now we're going to open up to questions. So anybody that has any questions on any of the topics, or just any questions for our guests, we're going to do just a couple minutes of that. And if you could line up at the microphones. Go ahead.
No, I'm Von Felty.
Von Felty, what's your question?
My question is how... it's more or less on the Facebook aspect. I'm wondering, I don't know if many of you are investors or what, but how big do you think virtual reality will be to invest into Facebook? Because I am a small time investor, and I just spend like $1,000 into Facebook stock. But again, it's kind of like in Microsoft, where Microsoft isn't Xbox, but I wouldn't think Facebook's isn't Oculus. But how big do you think Oculus will be in the coming 5 years or 5 to 10 years? How big do you think it will influence how big Facebook will be, or will Facebook merge into Oculus and so on?
Good question. I think Jonas, we've talked a little bit about stocks and stuff like that. Can you speak to this?
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking the same thing. This could be huge for Facebook, but a lot of their current value, I think, derives on their core business model, obviously. And from all appearances, I get the impression that Facebook is kind of, I don't know, the kids are going to other things. They're not exactly adopting Facebook. Their mothers and their aunts and their grandparents are on Facebook right now, sharing pictures with their kids. And if Facebook's overall business declines, I don't know that VR is going to save the stock price at this point. Personally, I decided not to invest in it, but I wouldn't say I'm a successful investor by any means.
All right, and I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question for the sake of time. Please say your name and ask your question.
This is NukeMarine. I guess the question is going to be, y'all were talking about earlier, what is something, say, from the 8-bit or prior generation that you'd like to see brought forward into VR that's kind of disappeared in between 8-bit and now? Yeah,
I think Smash TV. Is that 8-bit? Is that 16?
Well, allow it.
16.
Well, I'm getting detailed here, but anyway, Smash TV could be really cool in my opinion, because you're just
Technolust
like
has that vibe too.
But anybody else, what do you think? What old school?
I was hugely impressed by the Pac-Man in the 6 elements. You know, they have that kind of Pac-Man dungeon game sort of thing where you run around. Really innovative. And that point where you're playing through the virtual environment for 20 minutes, half an hour, and then you see an Oculus Rift and you grab it with your hands and then you put it on and then you're in a game. Totally blew my mind.
Anybody else? Quickly?
I don't necessarily say I want to play an 8-bit game in first person, but I want these arcade games over here to work. I build arcade cabinets and joysticks, and I want to be able to walk up to one of those with my joystick peripheral and just start, playing.
And I was just saying that this is going to sound crazy, but I would like to see somehow text adventure games work in VR, because I'm a huge fan of text adventure, interactive fiction, Colossal Caves, Zort games, all that kind of thing. I don't know what that looks like in VR, but it would be super cool.
I'm not with you on that, but it is interesting. If it could be done right, I might be. Now that I'm older, I might be digging that more. I never got into them. Chris?
Yeah, I guess I would say Space Invaders. I don't know if that's 8-bit, but that would be kind of cool to, I don't know, be inside Riftmax and play a giant Space Invader game here.
Yes, we want Riftmax to turn into an arcade for sure. Well, thanks for your question, Nuke.
Thanks for answering.
And I think that's all the time we really got. I do want to see what our poll result is. Let me see if I can take a quick look here. Or actually, I can't. Kane has to do that. we asked the question, when do we think the virtual reality is going to reach the 1 billion mark? You know, a couple years after that, or 5+ years? Kane, do we have a result?
We do. So nobody thought it was going to happen short term. 5 people thought it was going to happen midterm, 3 to 4 years, and then the most thought that it would happen 5+ years by a wide margin.
Yeah, that seems to be expected. Maybe they get it in the 3 or 4 mark just because it just freaking works somehow, magic, like we all want it to. But yeah, 5+ makes sense to me. All right, well, thanks for participating in the polls, guys. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I have a comment on that, the billion user Facebook and Oculus VR thing. I think in terms of reaching 1 billion users, it doesn't help that Facebook bought Oculus, because in China, Facebook is banned. I had meetings with Chinese investors who would say, if we want to work with Oculus, but if Oculus gets bought out by Google, we're not going to do business anymore because Google is also banned in China. So in that sense, just right now, Facebook, as we speak, I don't think the Chinese government is going to allow virtual reality into China. I mean, I'm crossing my fingers it does, but seeing how politics is evil for the most part, I think it's not going to go through for them. But in terms of like reaching the billion users, I think it's plausible if they are able to pull off a really, really, really cheap HMD and have a seamless experience that will blow people's minds. But other than that,
HMD free for doing something, subscribing or something.
Exactly. Yeah, that would work too.
Well, China can always have the game face, right? That's going to be pretty cheap and very accessible.
Yeah,
true.
There are others.
And I mean, the thing about China is, if any part of the Rift was made there, they've got the molds already. And if not, they'll reverse engineer it. And I'm sure that there are Rift copies out there somewhere already, and will be sold in consumer stores.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to have basically cheaper versions of the Rift already made in China, like 2 years from now, that are going to have all the same functionality and cost like $60.
China's going to build all this and then not allow it to happen. That's amazing. We win. All right, so that's all the time we've pretty much got. I do want to ask our guests to plug anything they want. If they don't want to plug anything of their own, maybe plug somebody else's thing. So let's start with Teddy real quick.
Make a roller coaster. I don't know. That's it.
Awesome. Jonas?
Give to Technolust and or remake Shadow of the Colossus for me, please.
Awesome. Chris?
Oh, just if you're in the Enter VR podcast, entervr.net, and I'm on Stitcher and SoundCloud, and still working on iTunes. Please be patient. Sorry, guys.
It's an awesome podcast, man. I really enjoy it. Every day.
All right, check out my YouTube channel, eVRydayVR. I have new virtual reality videos literally every single day, so it's definitely worth watching.
Love your channel, man. All right, so that's it, folks. I'll see you next time on Virtually Incorrect with me, Gunter. It's been a pleasure spending this time with you. Thank you to all my guests and audience members, as well as the Riftmax team and Roger Essig for his art. Thank you to the authors and commenters of the stories presented. And finally, thank you to the whole damn VR community. You guys rock. Good night, everybody. It's been a show.
Good morning. Go to sleep, Teddy.
Yeah, get out of here, man.
Less dancing, more sleeping.